And I know when we spoke earlier in the season, you were saying that it's possible you and a lot of your colleagues in college football might start resting some guys middle of the season, towards the end of the season, because you know you have this stretch coming up. Obviously, that wasn't guaranteed for you until you did win towards the end of the season. Did you actually coach differently this time around, knowing that you might have this stretch coming up?
Well, I think the one thing that we adjusted was definitely our practice plans and schedules, and just the length of the season, the amount of games you have to play. I think is always challenging. We're going to play 17 games, hopefully, and that's much different than before. And so I think managing your player workload on a week to week basis, managing your days off, and when you're giving them some days off to get away from the facility to kind of regroup and kind of recenter themselves, have been really the main things that we've adjusted. Naturally, as the season's gone on, we've had to make some critical decisions on players that were nursing injuries, of potentially holding them out or not, or limiting their role to try to get them as healthy as we could for this stretch run. But nowhere did we ever just intentionally hold anybody out. We never went to that extreme.
One of the managed players, is it Quinn Ewers? Would you say he's one of them?
Oh yeah, we've definitely had to manage him throughout the season. He got injured early in the season, came back, had to nurse an ankle injury here the latter half of the season. I think he's responded to it really well. I give him a lot of credit of how he's managed that. But we've been dealing with that with a handful of players. We have not been 100%. Every year it's different. What happens to your team, the injuries that may occur, and we've definitely endured some, most notably on the offensive side of the ball. But I think our guys have responded to it, week in and week out really well.
And so, how do you think Ewers looks now? I mean, because that is part of the conversation from people in my chair, is that he has not looked certainly like the kid that I saw against Michigan. How does he look to you going into this playoffs?
I think it's twofold. When you're not 100%, you have to manage that. And I thought he was able to use his legs a little bit better here the last couple weeks. Where I think we need to improve is we got to keep trying to play better around him. We were not, when our running game's not going, we become somewhat of a limited offensive football team, and we've got to make sure that we find that right balance. We've got to make sure that we protect the passer well. Got to make sure we're catching the balls. We got to make sure we're disciplining our routes. We got to make sure as a coaching staff we're putting together a good plan that allows him to play to that level. And then he's got to do his part too. And so in the end, I think like anything, you're the quarterback at the University of Texas, you probably get a little more credit than we deserve when we play well, and you probably get too much blame when you lose a ball game in overtime against a Georgia, who arguably is the best defense in the country. So all in all, that comes with the territory, but I credit Quinn a ton for how he's handled everything and managed it and stayed focused on the task at hand, and that's playing really good football and being a great teammate and a great leader.
I know in terms of managing somebody and potentially a banged up person as well, it doesn't usually mean take him off the field. But what about using Arch Manning more, Coach?
Yeah, no, there's always opportunities to do that, and I think we found opportunities to do that against A&M and against Georgia. Arch is a great player, and he's a great teammate as well, and so we're fortunate to have both those guys in that room and utilizing some of his strengths when those opportunities present themselves.
So, but how do you manage that? Because conversations again in worlds like this outside your building get to be had, certainly when he's taking snaps, and man, he looks so physical and he's so fast, he's so big, and what advantage you might have when you employ him. I mean, he took the first snap for you in overtime in the SEC championship game, Coach. But how do you manage that, knowing it might cause questions, but it might also be quite helpful for you, but it's also one of those, you got two, you might have none scenario?
I'd like to disagree with you on the last statement.
Okay.
We got two, and we're pretty good. So we're fortunate on that. I think at the end is, I try not to consume myself with what y'all think. We focus on the task at hand, and that's doing what's in the best interest of the team to win ball games. If I kind of led the emotional roller coaster of what other people think, I'd be an emotional nightmare, because in one aspect I can read one article that says Quinn's the greatest thing since whomever, and then next article is why don't you play Arch and this and that, and you can go back and forth all the way around and listen to talk radio and watch every show and whomever else, or you can focus on the people in your building, keep your head down, make sure that you're providing the right type of motivation and leadership for them so that they can follow your lead. And I think our guys have done a great job of that. And that's why it's no secret. We're in the college football playoff. We went to the SEC championship game. We were really the third ranked team in the CFP, but because of the way they seed the teams with automatic bids, we go in as a fifth seed. And I feel really good about our opportunity to go out and compete for a national championship. So I'm really not one to kind of buy into the opinions of others or the criticism of others that I would never ask for advice from.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku Channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.